So I've prayed a lot recently that God will just continue to show me truth in His Word and help me by the Holy Spirit to have discernment over things. And over the last few months, obviously, I've came to a lot more concrete beliefs in my faith as far as theology and things like that go. But more importantly, one thing I've noticed is there's a lot of things that have happened in the world that have a very spiritual, religious undertone to it that might not be quite caught at a quick glance. And I think that this is a perfect example and definitely worth showing how even people who don't believe in supernatural or God or anything like that have to admit that the people who are in power and rulers do. And this is a perfect example, one that I think is worth showing to everyone, that everyone needs to see to understand how we're controlled by people who are on the bad side. And this is undeniable proof. So, to start, there is a ceremony in London every single year. Okay. This is where they reverend in the new lord or mayor or whoever, okay? And it is in London every year, okay? And it is a ceremony, right, for the Lord's Mayor show where they swear loyalty to the crown, okay? Here is the flyer for 2024. Now, Christians can automatically know who Gog and Magog is. Okay, Gog and Magog are evil representations of the nations who are in control by Satan. Literally, I'm not kidding. Let's look at Revelations where it says this. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan will be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So these are representations of nations in the Bible, of demonically influenced nations in the Bible. Okay. Now, if we actually go to the Wikipedia page for Gog and Magog, a couple different things to note. First off, let's just go look at the pictures and what they depict. Okay. The Gog and Magog people, okay, this is a different type of representation of what Gog and Magog is. It's actually people as well. Okay, I'm not debating, I'm not trying to prove whichever way. Okay, I'm just trying to correlate it to this Lord Mayor show. Okay, and what it actually represents. So let's look through this. Okay, this is in Ezekiel. In Ezekiel, there's a man named Gog, and the he's speaking of his nation is called Magog. Which, if you know anything about the Bible, there's oftentimes that there can be a twofold meaning to names and places and things like that. Okay, so I'm once again, I'm not getting deep into that today. Okay, here's some more depictions, but this is more that I think everyone needs to see. The devil, Gog and Magog, attacked the holy city. Okay, so like I said, there's different representations of what this stuff is. Here's Gog and Magog builds a wall to seal. I'm not even going to pronounce that. So as you see, definitely some demonic stuff, right? Here's the monster of Gog and Magog. This quote unquote Gog and Magog also appears in the Quran as evil, wicked, right? And here's what I also wanted to see: Gog and Magog consuming humans. Okay, keep in mind this is literally celebrated in London. Okay? They literally have these statues that go parading around the street. Okay, here we go. This is the statues at this event that they show off. Gog and Magog. Okay, they're giants. They're giants. And let's look down here and I'll prove it to you how they even themselves, when they put them at this parade, they know they're giants. Our two giants, and name at least, are older than Methuselah. Okay? Literally, their names feature in the earliest holy books, including some of the Old Testament. Okay? So they are literally giants. They recognize that these characters that they celebrate and parade down the street every year in London are giants. Okay? Anyone who has a biblical understanding knows that the Nephilim in the Bible are giants, are the giants. Okay? And anyone who has a Christian biblical understanding of this knows that the Nephilim are demonic spiritual beings, okay, that interbred with humans in Genesis 6. And I'm going to show all that to you. So, once again, I just have it pulled up right here. Are giants Nephilim? Yes. Okay. The interpretation is supported by the Septuagint, blah, 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 blah. The Hebrew word for Nephal is to Nephal, which is to believe to be the origin of the word Nephilim. Those who cause others to fall, or the fallen ones. Okay. Now, let's go to this right here. I just wanted to say how Methuselah is known in the Bible to be the oldest person to ever live. As Methuselah, okay? And now we see right here in Genesis 6, guess who his father was? Enoch, okay? Once again, anyone who has studied the Bible for a long time knows what the book of Enoch is. Okay, the book of Enoch is a book that describes 200 a class of angels, 200 angels who come down to earth and interbreed with humans, and they show humans advanced technologies such as how to forge iron into weapons, mathematics, astrology, how to grow crops and how to harvest crops, etc. Okay, the book of Enoch gives 200 angels and gives them by name and talks about how they interbreed with humans. Okay. Well, guess what? If you go to Genesis 6, it talks about this in Genesis 6. Okay. And it comes to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives, of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his day shall be 120 years. Okay. Now it's theorized that when God said this, it was 120 years that Noah took to build the ark before the flood. Okay. So right here, there were giants in the earth in those days. How do we know what are giants? Giants are the Nephilim, these spirit beings. Okay. They were giants in the earth. So it's theorized that when these 200 angels came down, interbred with the humans, that their offspring were the giants, were the Nephilim, the fallen ones. Okay, an interbreeding of angelic beings, evil angelic beings, and humans. Okay, so now you can understand why it says, and God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. Now you can kind of understand that a little bit better, right? Because it was demonic. It wasn't normal. It wasn't by God's design. Okay. And now it's also theorized that this seed has continued to go. Okay. And right here in verse 9, it says, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. Okay. So if we go look at this verse 9 in the Hebrew, we see that this blameless, this is how the King James renders it. It rendered it as just man and perfect, right? So if we go look at that Hebrew word, guess what it means? Unblemished, without defect. without defect, without defect. And it's funny how in the book of Leviticus, this is talking about all the animal sacrifices that are to be done. They have to have no defect, without blemish, without defect, without blemish. So now you can see why it says in Genesis 6 that all man, every man had every imagination and thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. It was, and why he chose Noah, because Noah was without blemish, without defect. He wasn't affected by this quote unquote seed that came through from these angels in Enoch. Okay. And now there's one more thing I wanted to show. Right here, this is Jesus' words. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came, and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, on just a very surface level reading, you think that this just means, oh, the wicked people were just eating and drinking, and all of a sudden the flood came. And yeah, there's a truth to it. But if you actually look and study what were the days of Noah, the days of Noah were when there were giants and where there these supernatural spirit beings were roaming the earth through these people. Okay? Now I'm not saying that there's going to be giants in the earth before Jesus comes back. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that for people who study this stuff, they know that demons are the offspring, the spirits of the offspring of the Nephilim, of the giants. That people who actually have studied this stuff, they know that. It's not just angels that fell from heaven. No. It's the offspring of that interbreeding. That's what the demons are. They're the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Okay, and that's what they're celebrating right here in the middle of the street, right in front of everybody's faces. Gog and Magog. Okay, and I also wanted to notice too, right here, it says the two giants were older than the oldest. Well, it says that Methuselah's mother, but like I said, we know that he's the oldest man who ever lived. Okay, so these two giants that they celebrate every single year in London are older than the Enoch's son and Enoch's wife. Okay, it's kind of funny how this article refers to that, right? And how they're giants, they're Nephilim. And so, like I said, I just wanted to say that this is our world is controlled by people who believe this stuff, and they try to they use it, they parade it, and that's what side they're on. So if and in light of everything that's happened, if this isn't somewhat of a wake up call, I don't know what is. The people who are in control, they believe this stuff and they use it. So whether you do or not is besides the point. So I just felt like that was worth sharing.